My parents changed the locks in my own apartment after I got a promotion. Don't come crying when you realize blood doesn't mean loyalty, my sister sneered. You think you're better than us now? My dad laughed bitterly. 2 days later, I sent them a bill for every dime they ever borrowed. I always thought success would bring pride. Maybe even some long overdue validation. I didn't expect it to turn my own family into strangers, resentful, petty, and cruel in a way that still catches me off guard sometimes. The moment I got promoted, everything shifted. My phone buzzed nonstop, not with congratulations, but accusations. My sister, Valerie, told me I'd forgotten where I came from. My dad laughed at me, bitter and dismissive, saying I was getting too big for my britches. My mom stayed mostly silent, which almost hurt more. I could hear her disappointment in the pauses between words when we spoke, like she was holding back what she really wanted to say. Then, just 2 days after I returned from a work trip, I found myself standing in front of my own apartment, locked out. My key didn't fit. My lock had been changed. And I knew immediately who had done it. I remember pressing my hand to the doorknob, half expecting it to magically turn. The hallway was quiet except for the hum of the lights overhead, the kind that flicker faintly at the ends like dying stars. My suitcase sat at my feet, the wheels scuffed from dragging it through the airport, my coat damp from slush and lake wind. I knocked. Then I knocked harder. Nothing. Eventually, Miles, the maintenance guy, rounded the corner, carrying a toolbox. "Oh hey, Cass," he said, casually. "Your dad and sister were here yesterday. Said you were changing the locks?" I blinked at him, not understanding. "What?" "They showed me the work order. It had your name. I figured it was all good." I couldn't even speak. My throat went dry. It wasn't until I got back inside after showing the building manager my lease and proof of ID and calling the police just to have it on record that I realized the full extent of what they had done. My bedroom had been picked through. Drawers opened, jewelry boxes disturbed. 2 of my handbags were missing, nothing designer, but still. A pair of earrings my college roommate had given me were gone. An old childhood photo of me and my grandfather was sitting face down on the floor. And on the kitchen counter, in Valerie's handwriting, was a note on a torn notebook page: "Maybe now you'll remember who raised you." That moment broke something open inside me. A stillness, almost. Not rage. Not even sadness. Just clarity. I started keeping track of every dollar I ever gave them years ago, first out of necessity, then out of habit, and eventually out of a quiet form of self-respect. I had helped pay off credit cards, co-signed on a medical bill for my dad, wired money to Valerie when her power got shut off, and paid for groceries too many times to count. I sat down at my desk, opened the file, and started itemizing again. Then I added interest. The total came to $33,416. And for the first time in my life, I sent my family a bill. The next morning, my mom called me 5 times in a row. I didn't answer. Then came the texts. From Valerie. From my dad. All of them indignant, wounded, accusing. "You're really gonna do this to your own family? Wow. Just wow. Who even are you anymore? We did everything for you. You ungrateful brat." They had no idea how much of myself I'd given away just to keep the peace. To belong. I didn't respond. I was done negotiating my worth. It had been coming for years, I think. Even before I moved out, I was always the fixer. The dependable one. I never asked for much. Never expected applause. When I got into college on a scholarship, my mom barely looked up from her bills. My dad made a joke about me being too smart for my own good. When I got my first job out of school, Valerie asked if I could help with diapers. I said yes. When I bought my first used car, my dad borrowed it for 3 weeks. I walked to work in the snow. And when I finally got a 1-bedroom apartment that didn't smell like mildew or came with a roommate who played the drums at 2 a.m., Valerie and her kids spent the weekend there while she figured stuff out. There was never a thank you. Only more need. More pulling. And I let it happen. Because I was terrified of being selfish. The day after I sent the bill, I changed my number. I emailed HR to flag any unknown contacts attempting to reach me at work. And I booked myself a weekend in Chicago alone. I walked along the Navy Pier with a coffee in one hand and the cold breeze in my hair, and I felt free. I hadn't realized how heavy the weight of obligation was until it wasn't sitting on my chest anymore. That night, I wrote a letter to myself. A promise. You don't owe anyone your peace just because they share your DNA. Back home in Cleveland, I got a call from my building's front desk. Valerie had shown up, asking to be let in. They denied her entry. She waited in the lobby for an hour. Then I left. The next morning, a crumpled envelope was shoved under my door. Inside was a photo of us as kids. Me in a pink sweater. Valerie held my hand, maybe 7 years old, smirking like she always did. On the back, remember this? When we actually gave a damn about each other? I stared at it for a long time. Then I filed it away. I didn't respond to the photo Valerie left. Not because it didn't affect me, it did, but because I didn't trust myself to say something I wouldn't regret. I kept thinking about how many versions of me had bent backward for her. How many versions had tried to make her proud. How many birthdays I remembered buying gifts for her kids, knowing full well she forgot mine. The old photo haunted me, though. Not just because of what it showed, but because of what it tried to weaponize nostalgia. That moment in the picture? It was real. But everything after had chipped away at that bond. Not in one moment, but in 1,000 small ones. Still, guilt is a tricky thing. Especially when you've been trained your whole life to feel it just for saying no. I threw myself into work. My promotion had come with a bigger team, more responsibility, and a lot more travel. I was managing campaigns across 3 states now, and part of my job involved consulting with store managers on local marketing strategy. That meant a lot of hotel rooms, late nights, and coffee-fueled mornings. It should have been overwhelming, but honestly, it was a relief. The more time I spent on the road, the less time I had to think about what was unraveling at home. But the silence didn't last. About a week after Valerie dropped the photo off, I got a call from my dad. A number I didn't recognize. I answered, not thinking. Cass, he said immediately, listen. Just hear me out. I said nothing. He sighed like someone who'd rehearsed his lines but suddenly forgot them. I didn't know she was gonna do that. The lock thing. That was all Valerie's idea. I almost laughed. You were there. I thought you knew. I thought you always say we don't visit. I figured maybe this was a test? A test? I hung up. That night, I opened a new spreadsheet. Labeled it boundary log. It felt stupid at first, but it helped. Every time I ignored a call, denied an entry, said no, or refused to explain myself, I logged it like a financial transaction. Boundary upheld, February 17th ignored Valerie's Instagram rant. Boundary upheld, February 19th didn't answer Dad's call. Boundary upheld, February 21st didn't explain why I'm not coming to Mom's birthday dinner. It was like reverse bookkeeping for my mental health. And slowly, I was learning that saying no didn't make me cruel. It made me clear. The next escalation came when Valerie sent an email. She'd never emailed me before, not in her life. The subject line was, "We need to talk." The body, "I know you think you're better than all of us now. I know you probably tell your work friends some big sob story about your trashy family. But I'm your sister. And yeah, maybe I've messed up. But you're acting like you never needed help from anyone. Like you did this all on your own. You didn't. You grew up with a roof. With food. We all struggled so you could go be the golden child. You owe us." It took me 2 full days to even open it. Another 2 to stop shaking with rage every time I read it. But I didn't reply. Instead, I printed it. Highlighted the phrase "you owe us." Taped it on the back of the cabinet where I kept my wine glasses. Not to be vindictive. Just as a reminder of what gaslighting looks like. One day, I ran into Miles again, the maintenance guy. He looked sheepish. "Hey, about the locks. I should have called you. I just thought it was all fine. Your dad was real smooth." I waved it off. "Not your fault. It won't happen again." He looked relieved. "Good. I was worried you were pissed at me." "I'm not. Just next time someone says they're me, maybe double check that they don't call me a spoiled wench while they're doing it." He went pale. I walked away. What people don't talk about when they talk about setting boundaries is how lonely it gets before it gets better. There's no fanfare. No applause. Just quiet. Deafening at times. You keep checking your phone, expecting someone to reach out, to see how you're doing. But when your entire identity was built around being needed, being useful, once you stop being that, they disappear. And you're left wondering if you've made a mistake. I didn't know it yet, but at this stage this aching silence was actually the start of healing. It was early April when the silence finally broke, but not from Valerie or my dad. It came from my mom. She showed up at my work. I was in the middle of reviewing a spring marketing campaign when reception called to say someone was downstairs asking for me. "She says she's your mother. Says it's an emergency." I felt that old twinge in my stomach again, the one that always used to make me drop everything. But this time I didn't rush. I walked. Deliberately. When I saw her in the lobby, I barely recognized her. She looked tired, older. Her coat hung loose on her frame. Her hands clutched a zippered purse like she was afraid someone might snatch it. "Cass," she said, standing quickly. "Please. I just need 5 minutes." I motioned to a small bench in the corner, behind a fake plant and a promotional poster for a mall event I was organizing. We sat. She didn't speak for a long time. Her hands trembled a little. "I didn't know about the locks," she said finally. "They didn't tell me. I would never have agreed to that." I nodded. Not because I believed her completely, but because I didn't have the energy to fight about that part anymore. She looked down at her lap. "I miss you." I said nothing. "I miss your voice. I miss knowing you're okay." "Valerie's spiraling, your dad's angry all the time. But you're the only one who ever got out." I used to think maybe that would be enough. That if one of us made it, it meant we all could. But now I wonder if we just made you feel like a burden. I stared at her. "You didn't wonder," I said quietly. "You knew. You just didn't care enough to stop it." She didn't cry. That surprised me. She looked like she wanted to, but something held her back. Maybe pride. Maybe guilt. "I'm not asking for money," she said. "I swear. I just want to see you. To talk." I stood. "I can't do this here." She nodded, stood slowly, and followed me toward the exit. As I pushed open the glass door, she touched my shoulder. Just a brush of her hand, like she used to when I was little. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For everything." I didn't respond. I just walked back inside. That night, I sat in bed for hours, staring at the ceiling. Her words kept replaying in my head. It wasn't the apology that stuck with me, it was the way she said you're the only one who ever got out. Like that was some betrayal. It hit me then, maybe they never really wanted me to succeed. Maybe I was never meant to rise above the noise. Not in their eyes. A week later, I got a Venmo notification. $250 from Valerie. Note, partial repayment. I stared at it for a long time. It didn't make a dent in the $33,000. But it was something. It was also a shift. The first sign that maybe just maybe my silence had spoken louder than all the explanations I used to give. That boundaries, when held, eventually start teaching the lesson people refuse to hear the easy way. I added it to the spreadsheet. $250. Valerie. Paid. April 12th. Then I opened my boundary log and wrote, April 12th, didn't text thank you. Didn't reopen communication. Hold the line. My apartment was finally feeling like home again. I replaced the lock for the second time. Bought a new bedroom set. Switched my wall photos. Little things to reclaim the space. I even repainted the entryway a soft olive green, the same color as the walls in my first college dorm, the place where I'd first started to believe I might have a future beyond Akron. Sometimes I still felt the pull. That quiet, persistent question, what if I'm being too harsh? But then I'd remember all the nights I sat in this very apartment, exhausted from work, and still wiring money I couldn't afford to send. Or the times they'd mocked me for thinking I was better every time I said I couldn't help. Or when they invaded my space, took things, and left a note like a warning. Maybe now you'll remember who raised you. And I would remember, I wasn't being harsh. I was free. I started therapy. My therapist, a calm, gray-haired woman named Camille, said something that stopped me cold in our second session. You were never loved for who you were. You were valued for what you could give. I nodded, blinking fast. Boundaries, she continued, aren't walls to keep people out. They're the fences that keep your garden safe from people who walk in with muddy boots. That image stuck with me. Every time my phone buzzed now, I asked myself, is this person here to walk gently in my garden, or stomp through it? Most of the time, I already knew the answer before I even picked up the phone. So I stopped picking up. One Friday evening, as I was cleaning out my hall closet, I found an old box labeled family stuff. Inside, cards, photos, little trinkets from childhood. A few letters Valerie had written me when I was away at college. A drawing from one of her kids. A birthday card from my dad with a $20 bill inside and a note that read, "Don't spend it all in one place, smarty pants." I sat there on the floor, holding that box, unsure whether to cry, laugh, or just burn it all. Instead, I closed the lid. Not because I was done with it. But because I finally understood, I didn't have to destroy the past to protect my future. It was nearly a year after the locks incident when I finally saw all three of them again in the same room. It wasn't planned. I hadn't been invited. But I showed up. My cousin Jenna was getting married in Akron. She and I had stayed in touch over the years. She was one of the few family members who never asked for money, only ever reaching out to say hello or share photos of her garden or her cat doing something ridiculous. She called me personally to say she hoped I'd come. It's just one day, Cass. No pressure. But I think it'd be good to see you. I said I'd think about it. Then the invitation came in the mail, handwritten, with a little sticky note on the side, "You don't owe anyone anything. Just come as you are." That got me. I RSVP'd yes. The church was small, charming, full of soft light and white tulips. I arrived early, sat in the back pew near the aisle. I knew they'd be there. And sure enough, 10 minutes before the ceremony, I saw Valerie, Mom, Dad. They didn't see me at first. I was wearing a deep green dress, hair swept back, minimal makeup. Not trying to stand out. Just be present. When they did see me, Valerie's eyes widened. My dad stiffened. My mom looked like she might cry. But I didn't flinch. I gave a small, polite nod. Then I turned back toward the altar. They didn't approach me. Not before. Not during. Not after. At the reception, Jenna introduced me to her colleagues from Dayton. One of them worked in nonprofit marketing. We ended up deep in conversation about community campaigns and grassroots outreach. I felt light. Rooted. Myself. Midway through dinner, I saw Valerie get up and start walking toward me. She stopped behind my chair. I turned, smiling faintly. "Hey," she said, awkwardly. You look good. Thanks. You came, she said, like she didn't believe it. I came for Jenna. She nodded, swallowing hard. Then, did you get the payments? All of them, I said. She nodded again. I'm still paying. I'm trying. I know. A pause. Then she leaned in, lowering her voice. You really don't want to talk to any of us? I set my fork down and looked at her, not unkindly. I'm not punishing anyone, Val. I'm just protecting myself. She blinked. For once, she had nothing to say. Then she straightened up and walked away. That was it. No scene. No tears. Just honesty. A few weeks later, I received a certified envelope in the mail. Inside, a check from my dad. $5,000. No note. I stared at it for a long time, then added it to the ledger. The total repayments were now over $6,000, not even a quarter of what was owed, but enough to remind me that my silence had spoken louder than every cry for attention I ever gave. But I didn't cash it. Instead, I returned it. Enclosed in a small white envelope with a typed note that read, "This debt is no longer financial. Keep the money. Use it to fix what's still broken if you want to." That was the last time I heard from him. Today, my life is quiet. Not lonely, quiet. My home is filled with soft things. Books. Plants. Framed art from local makers. I host dinners with friends who laugh without sarcasm, who ask about my day and listen like they care. I mentor a young woman named Ayana through a career prep program. She reminds me of myself, bright, driven, carrying too much for someone her age. She asked me once if I missed my family. I thought for a moment. Then I said, I miss the version of them I used to hope they'd become. She nodded slowly, like she understood something bigger than the words. I still have the spreadsheet. I don't open it anymore, but I don't delete it either. It's a reminder. Not of debt. Of dignity. That day they changed my locks, they tried to take my sense of ownership. My space. My peace. But I took it back. Not with revenge. Not with rage. With boundaries. With truth. With silence that spoke louder than all the noise they ever made. And now, when I turn my key in the door, I know this home, this life, this peace, it's mine. Fully. Finally, and I'll never let anyone take it from me again.